All right, I'm going to go ahead. It's 6:30. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Roll call. Shelley is absent. She had a conflict, and Rick and Mike are both on vacation. Attest to publication.
I saw it.
Thank you, Joni. Approval of the agenda.
Second.
Motion made by Tina, seconded by Joni. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Tina is going to share the district mission, vision, values, and Board of Education collective commitment. You want to go on the mic?
Mission, Bangor Pride, a small school building big futures. Vision, an innovative small school creating excellence through personalized learning and relationships for all. Values, student-centered safety, opportunity for all, small class sizes, fiscally sustainable, foster community, continuous improvement, professionalism. And then on to our statement. As a member of the Bangor School Board, I will be an active listener who is open-minded, respectful, and inquisitive. Together with one collaborative voice, we are committed to forward thinking while strategically prioritizing for our students, staff, and community now and into the future.
Thank you. All right, any public comment? Approval of minutes from the June 12th meeting.
I'll move to approve the minutes from the June 12th, 2024 regular meeting of the Board of Education.
Second.
Motion made by Joni, seconded by Kelly. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I need to abstain.
Tina will abstain. Thank you. Motion carried. Let's see here. June 26th, the board study session. So on Wednesday, June 26th, myself, Shelley, Joni, Kelly, and David, we met.
Jessica, too.
And Jessica.
No.
I was not.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, I was thinking
She was-
I
no.
am so sorry. I was thinking she was.
It's okay. We met and had a great discussion. David reviewed a historical perspective of our referendums, of our mill rates. Very good, very informational. And anyone else who was there, please add. And as you know, we will have a final decision in our August meeting. This was a discussion meeting only. We will have a final vote decision at our August meeting. But with the summation of our discussion, at the end of the discussion, we asked David to focus on preparing a $900,000 recurring referendum question. And we can have further discussion about that. And of course, it would be for this fall. November would be the election date.
In our district reports, I will kind of go over a summary of all that information as well, and that may be a better time for discussion. But if there's anybody else that just wants to talk about the discussion from that
Yeah,
evening.
Joni, Kelly, anything else? Okay. And like David mentioned, he'll talk about that more later. Committee reports, Policy Review Committee. Joni, I believe you're the chair of that. Met?
Oh, I sure am. We met on July 2nd. It was myself and Lisa and Kelly. Quite honestly, the list of policies I don't think there was any substantial content change, a lot of change of definition or just rearranging a little bit of, but nothing substantive. One new policy, and quite honestly, I wouldn't even hardly call it a policy. It's more of a statement about the fact that we understand that there's AI. It's not saying we agree with it. It's not, I mean, it's just kind of a statement at this point, so. David can elaborate.
Thank you, Joni. Goals Committee, we have a meeting set for July 16th at 6 p.m. We'll meet in the district office boardroom. Members are myself, Tina, and Jessica. Thank you.
I'm fine.
Are you sure?
But is the rest
I'm good with 6:30.
Tina?
Yeah, 6:30 is good.
I'll change it on the calendar.
No problem. All right, financial documents.
Only question, or two, I guess two questions. One question came in. This is the month that you will see the deposits to the retirement accounts. And there are some different amounts because if you remember, we still have some employees on one plan and some employees, that are grandfathered into an older plan. So is a little discrepancy in numbers there. But that was a question that came up, not something we see but once a year when that happens after a completion of a year of service to the district. And then good feedback from Joni, just it would be helpful for the board to see some additional descriptions at times. And some of that is just what we need to ask of the teachers when they're putting things in to request them. So we'll work on that and try to improve that for you guys for this year. So there's
Yeah,
always
sometimes
clarity
there's
on
just some odd
Right.
titling,
Yep.
and it's like, now what would we be getting that company for? And it's something that we do every year, but we don't remember that.
that. Right. Absolutely. So good feedback, and it's something that we will work on. And there were no other real questions on that. So if there are no questions, we'd look to move for approval of the financials.
I only had one question, and did we purchase one bus?
So we purchased the one brand new one,
Okay.
and we purchased two used ones
Okay.
from Viroqua.
Okay.
The new one and one of the new ones from Viroqua came out of the end of last year, and one of the new ones from Viroqua is coming out of the start of this year.
That was my only question. If anybody has any, doesn't have any, I'll make a motion to approve the financials.
Second.
Motion made by Tina, seconded by Joni. Any further question or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Facility projects update. Dr. Bruck.
Yeah, the report is in here from last Friday, and it is amazing how much things change in 3 days, even since that report was completed. Even from the time of the day where those pictures were taken to the end of the day, the change is incredible. There's 50 plus people at the elementary school every day, 20 to 25 in this building going. It is really moving. The elementary school, I guess in general, is the pinch point, is the colossal lift. We had talked about the fact that beam was holding things up that was over the old stage area. We did make a decision on that shortly after that meeting. The beam is still there. It just got moved 13 feet and reused. So some cost savings for not needing to buy new materials, but obviously some structural things that had to happen and some labor to move that. It is in and it is moving and things are going, but that did slow our timeline down. They never stopped. They continued to work around the perimeter. So in your notes, you're going to see a map of that elementary school, and I think this is worth just sharing, just so people kind of understand. The teams have really looked at this on areas 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 south and 6 north type of situation. So that is the progression that they're using. So the front hallway, the 2008 hallway that will be kindergarten and first grade is painted. The hallways are painted. They are about halfway through with the flooring in those. Ceiling grid is back in. They'll be finishing that area up within the next week or so, and we'll get in there and do our finished cleaning, which is going to be extensive in that area. They'll keep that area sealed off for us then, so there's not traffic in and out of that area once it's cleaned and ready to go. Area 2, the painters will be shortly, probably by the end of this week, and beginning to paint in that area 2, which is our new bathrooms, the special ed suite, and the speech and language room, and all those types of things. They will likely tie in that area 6 south with that work. As things progress, just because you're all in the same hallway, and trying to get to the point where we can seal off that area 6. So we would have K through 5 classrooms all accessible, the special ed suite, the title rooms, and all of those types of things. They'll move around the corner, and they'll work on finishing off in quad 3. That quad 2, they finished the electrical work today, and again, it is ready for paint in there. Quad 3, they'll move the electrical work to in there, and then just continue the progression and work around to this. As you look at it, just the general timeline, doing the final HVAC startups, by the time they run all of the lines to everywhere in this building, nothing is a straight shot, nothing is easy overhead because it's going around all the beams. Those last startups will be taking some time, and the startups of the kitchen equipment and getting everything set to go. Those are what we're seeing right now as those areas. There may be a little bit of exterior stuff that they're not focusing on right now, because we need the masons inside, because the roofers we need over at the activity center, and those types of things that will get wrapped up and we go. But I think that's just a good visual. I feel very strongly we're going to be able to get our teachers, our K-5 special ed teachers in those rooms in good time, get those prepped, get those ready to go, and then we'll just continue to give back spaces as soon as we are able on that timeline. So again, I wanted you guys to have that visual and just kind of understand kind of the scope of things going on in there. The changes in a week, one given week is absolutely amazing how fast it's going. It is really getting to the point where it's closing, they're closing things up and putting it back together. I didn't think the demo was ever going to end. So neither did the dumpster company. They're like, is there anything left in there? It's going to be amazing, but that's kind of a progression on that timeline. With those, with the structural types of things that we've encountered in here, we talked a little bit. There has been, hits to the, to the contingencies. We reviewed today. We're going to review again next week on where we are. I really feel we're going to be able to deliver on getting the boilers and stuff as we had hoped. Be able to get that parking across from the new weight room taken care of, and still be within those contingency dollars and those types of things. Some of the extras that I was hoping for above and beyond that may not happen at this moment in time, but we'll have to see how things, how things shake out beyond that. But that's the timeline. They also have a timeline on the exterior of this elementary school where they'll start on this playground side with the cement work and earthwork and everything, and work around to the parking. The week of like the 20th of August is when we're looking at doing all the blacktop in the district. So there's a lot that'll happen between now and then, but that's kind of what we're shooting for. So that's an overview of what's going on. Again, the middle school, high school progressing incredibly well. We're not terribly concerned about this building at all. There's no materials that we're necessarily waiting for or anything like that. It's just the time to get it done, and we've got the crews to make that happen. The activity center, they've started on the roof, and once that roof is done, we're going to feel a whole lot better about painting and finishing the floor, pouring the concrete in the addition, and all those types of things. Until that's there, not knowing what's going to happen when they tear all that off, we don't want to drop a bunch of dust and stuff on finished product down below or have something ruined there. So the timeline has worked out there. We'll get that roof done, and then we'll be able to wrap that up in there. we will host in the entryway of the activity center. We will host the election on August 13th, which is just a primary. I don't think there's any contested races, so we don't expect a huge turnout for that. But we've worked with the village and worked with Market and Johnson, and we will have that available to the public on that day for that front area at least. Any questions on construction progress?
Is all the cleaning part of their bit?
Yes and no. I mean, the massive cleaning, but the amount of dusting and the classroom type cleaning and the moving of all of the small materials and everything, we're going to have our crews, working right hand in hand with them on that. The main cleaning, the coming back and washing all the windows and doing a lot of that type of stuff, they do have crews that will that's part of it.
Okay.
So if we do it, we get credit. So it's not built into any of the contractors right now. There's a allotment held for that cleaning.
Okay.
So we need to keep people moving and make sure those areas are ready.
Okay, thank you. David, you can continue with the November referendum communication.
Yeah, thank you. So I put together this presentation, really trying to just summarize what we discussed at the board study session the other night. So looking at this preliminary operational referenda information, kind of a timeline to November, this meeting tonight. We're looking at sharing this information. I don't know why I have August 14th, July to August 14th. August 14th is the next board meeting. Sharing information, gathering feedback from the community. So as you guys are talking to folks, as we're sharing this out with the community, if there is feedback, it's a chance for you guys to hear that and weigh that when we look at the resolution at the August meeting. August 14th board meeting, the board will vote to set a referendum question. If there are anything changes that need to be made to it before then, we can absolutely take a look at that. But that's when the board would vote to approve the resolution. August 14th to November 5th then is really about educating the community, making sure that everybody understands what's going on, putting it in the district newsletters and the website and mailings and all those types of things, and getting that communication out. So just in general, we took presentations that I started with in February, presented when I presented on just some of our budget projections for next year, then looking at the open enrollment trends that we did, and then looking at our Baird presentation. I've kind of taken some of those highlighted slides. So third Friday head counts, our enrollment as a district does continue to grow. The more students you have, the more funding you get, and the more students you have, obviously it costs more to operate. So those things are kind of where we sit, and those are the numbers we're predicting for next year. State funding over time is that per pupil revenue limit, and we get funded by the state based on how many students are there and how much per student is set by the state. Last year, we saw that increase from $10,000 to $11,000 per pupil, which was part of what allowed us to under levy last year. This year, we see an increase of $350 on that, so $11,350 per pupil. Right now, as it stands, that $350 is supposed to be added to that base each year for quite some time. Okay, so you can kind of see that trend over time. When you look at that per pupil adjustment and you compare it since 2013, since Act 10, the red line at the bottom, this is the Baird slide, the red line at the bottom is what inflation did in that year, and then what the aid changed. So you can see we have fallen below the inflation every one of those years, 22 and 23, even though inflation was high, we saw no increase in that per pupil aid. Again, creating some of the gap that this district has historically filled with an operational referendum. 2024, again, we had a good jump this year, but that aid's still not keeping up with the pace of inflation, which makes it difficult to run a school district. The way that Bangor has kept up with that historically is since 2007, we've operated under operational referendums. So there has been taxpayer authority given to the school district to levy above the state imposed levy by this much, by up to this much. So really, since 2016, we've been in that $900,000 range. This past year, we were able to under levy. Again, the state was able to help a little bit, so we didn't necessarily need to make that whole difference. So we levied at $750,000 this year. Without an operational referendum, all of that goes away, and the authority that the board has to levy for that money goes away. Without $900,000 in our budget, our school district looks very, very different. And this isn't something that just happened because we just passed a capital referendum. It is something that is happening to all school districts as that gap between kind of the funding and the inflation continue. So this is how the district has kept up and what we're asking to continue. We're asking to continue that $900,000. We're not looking to take another step. We're looking to keep at that $900,000 amount. I think an important slide when we look at the conversations that we had the other night at the board study session. Our community, we are incredibly fortunate that we have had long time support from our community for our school district. And when we've gone to the community and we've asked and we've explained what we need, the community has stepped up and supported us through all of those referendums. With the current status, we have done 3 and 4 year referendums. So the proposal that we are looking to put on the ballot in November would be a recurring. So once we approve that $900,000, we would be approving it one last time. And that $900,000 would just stay. If at some point in time, 5 years from now or 10 years from now, we need additional levy authority, we could go back to the community. At that point in time when we ask, it could be for $100,000 or $50,000 or $150,000. It wouldn't have to be for the whole amount. And we don't have to worry each year about what do we look like $900,000 short if that funding goes away. So I think that's just an important distinction. When we look at this record, we feel like the community has been supportive, and we do hear from the community that there are people saying, stop coming back and asking for money. And in a sense, we're asking for the same money over and over again. So the effort here is an opportunity to lock that in, and we'll only come back if we need additional revenue in the future. We're not alone. We're talking a $11 million operational budget for our district, just short of that, and we're asking for $900,000 of it, which is less than 10% if I do my math right. There are 100 school districts at the end of last school year that are in the state of Wisconsin that are operating with at least 10% of their operational budget supported by referendum. Still being below that at $900,000, I think speaks highly to the financial management that the district has done over time. So I think that's important. The map on the right is just is since 1992, every school district that is passed an operational referendum to somehow close that gap between what the funding has done and what inflation has done in their communities. So just a good graphic to be able to see some of those types of things. This district, before some of you were sitting around this table, before I was sitting here, before Dave was sitting here, has had a commitment to really working on stabilizing the mill rate to dropping the mill rate over time. Looking forward and saying, instead of dropping a whole bunch, we're gonna pay forward on some debt to keep that stable so that we don't have a mill rate that goes all over. We have a predictable mill rate that continues on a slow decline. With all of the planning we've done with Baird, the recurring referendum we are planning to continue that slow decline to stable mill rate. And we believe that we can do that based on the Baird model. So the Baird model projections, based on what we had shown through Baird, those are updated numbers of what we predict the mill rate should be able to do over at least the next 4 years as we plan going forward. Looking forward, that change, the things I just talked about, we're keeping that operational referendum request number at 900,000. And we still believe we can drop that mill rate. We have the ability, as we did this year, to control the mill rate by under levying if we are able and need to keep that commitment to our community. And I think that's important that the community has seen, and that we'll continue to do that as we move forward. That loss of $900,000 funding, as I've said a couple times, makes our district look incredibly different. The opportunities that we get for our kids look different without that funding over time. Draft question, we're not saying this is the question. This is the question that you asked me to prepare for. This was put together by our attorneys. Shall the school district of Bangor, La Crosse County, Monroe counties, Wisconsin be authorized to exceed the revenue limit in section 121.91 Wisconsin state statutes by $900,000 beginning with the 25-26 school year for recurring purposes? I put at the bottom, kind of explaining that recurring purposes. So the recurring purposes is we're locking those dollars into place, and we would only come back if we're looking for an increase. For perspective, over an 18-year period since 2007, there have been 4 times that the district has had to step that up. So gives a perspective. I think the fact, one of the facts that we've thought about in a 3-year question versus a recurring question is, well, what if in 3 years the state is funding us better and we don't need all of that money? Well, we've shown this past year when the state stepped up, we didn't have to levy to that full authority because you as a school board still set that levy. So we have that ability in there. And I think with that, with the timing, with some of the financial decisions we've made with our insurance and those types of things, I think we're in a good place to set this and be able to have that in place for quite a period of time before we need to ask for additional support. Hitting again the successful referendum in November with that question. It does not set the levy or mill rate. The school board will still set the levy and mill rate each year. It's giving the school board the authority to set up to an amount that we have shown over time that we have used responsibly, and that we have that ability if we need it to operate our school districts at the level that our community expects. And I think that's, a big task and that this board has done very well for many, many years. I have a website. I sent you some Q&As that I was working for that. I have that ready to go. Because it's still in draft form, it's kind of difficult to show here. But I have that ready and have the questions and answers on there. I have a number of the slides from this presentation that just pop right out on it. We've taken the videos from the board meetings where we've had those other discussions and linked those, the PowerPoints from those other discussions, so somebody can look at the full open enrollment information for the district and how that affects our budget. All of those types of things are linked on that website. I'll send you guys a link as soon as that's ready to go. But I think it's important, I have on there, this is the proposed question, that we start to get that information out to our community so that it's ready to go. As you review the questions and answers that I sent you, if there's other questions you'd like answered on that, in that forum, or corrections or something like that for me, please let me know, and we can follow up on those.
So once approved, that link will show up on the website, on
Correct.
just the regular school website.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oops.
And then when we send out, flyers, when we send out information about this, when that begins, it'll link to that website. Be the hub for information.
Just to be clear, we're gonna set the mill rate, but we're not gonna set we have no control over property values
Yep.
or tax.
Yep. And thank you. I hit that in the questions and answers. I think you should read that and see. But yeah, I think that's an important distinction. The mill rate is the amount per $1,000 of value on a property. We have control over setting that mill rate. When we set that mill rate, we don't control property value in the community. And property value in the community, like many communities across the state, has increased. It also doesn't increase absolutely the same for all municipalities within the Bangor School District in a given year. There's usually a rotation where those numbers are updated. So it may hit one municipality harder in one year, and then it may not hit them the same the next year. It all depends on how that municipality looks at the fair market value. I think the important part of that is when they're calculating fair market value, the fair market value is what the mill rate is taxed on. It is not taxed on the appraised rate on properties. So that fair market value, that's a really difficult time. It's not a formal process of appraising your home. It's what it's based on compared to what your neighbor just sold their house for. Or the new neighbor just bought their house for, or whatever it may be. So those things are out of our control. We are not guaranteeing that taxes will go down. We're going to control what we can control and what our district has focused on for many years, and that is controlling that mill rate so that there's stability and predictability in that. I guess the last part of that is with every Baird type projection, we talk about that long-term forecast is kind of a guess. I think we have a history of being very conservative in those long range projections and trying not to get to a point where that changed for the worse, but be able to tell people that it changed for the better. And I would say that was very much part of the thinking when we built the Baird model this time around too, that we were very conservative in building that. So there can be things that are adjusted over time in that as well. So hopefully those numbers are better than promised, but that's what you'll set each year in October after the annual meeting. All right.
Any questions? All right. Next district action agenda, childcare lease resolution, David.
Yeah, so I put together a amazing MOU for our childcare agreement that we had talked about, and I put together a great MOU for that childcare agreement. I sent it off to Bob, and Bob said, yeah, that's really, really nice, but you should do a lease. And he sent it back, kind of taking the information I'd put in the MOU and put it into a lease format. He said, this is way cleaner, it's way easier, it's way more appropriate to say that you're leasing that space for a year or longer, based on, board approval each year on that, and you're leasing it for $0 to start out with, and then that amount can change over time. The thing about a lease is that the board does not have authority to lease the school facilities unless the electors, and the electors are the people who come to our annual meetings. The electors give the board authority to do the lease. So we could wait till the annual meeting, which would be too late after school started, or we can have a special meeting of the electors at 6:00 before our August meeting. We will have the electors hopefully approve a resolution to give the board authority to approve the lease. And then at our regular meeting in August, the board would vote to approve the lease. or deny the lease if however you vote that way. That's the process that has to carry out. To do that, we are resolving that we are asking the electors to consider this, giving the board authority to approve the lease. And that's what this resolution in the public content section gets us towards. So tonight, our action would be to approve this resolution. At 6 o'clock on the 14th of August, the electors would meet, give the board authority, and act on a very similar resolution so that the board has authority. At the board meeting, the board would approve or have the ability to approve the lease. More steps than we wanted, but it's the cleanest and what Bob had recommended for us.
I'm confused. So tonight we're just approving the verbiage
You are approving
and
the
the
we are
date of the special meeting.
approving the resolution and setting the special meeting to be held on August 14th at 6 o'clock p.m.
Is there a full lease
Yes, it's in your
packet?
documents,
Okay.
in your administrative document. That's what the board would approve
Tonight or next?
next week.
August, next month.
Yeah, next month, sorry.
And it goes from year to year, and we can terminate it at any time if they fail to do what they say they're gonna do, and
Yep. So the resolution tonight would request this, the electors at a special meeting to authorize the school board to designate sites of the school for lease for suitable buildings up to 20 years for annual rentals and fixed lease by law, any lawful reason rental if approved by the annual or special school district meeting. So that's
So this lease isn't specific to this. It's in.
what you're approving here is not specific to this. It's asking for a special meeting that would allow the board to approve the specific lease.
it's the only lease in question at this point.
Correct. The lease would allow for Bangor elementary facilities to be used, including the common storage areas, restrooms, hallways, and playgrounds. So it is specifying that, but it's not specifying all of the elements of the lease.
At this point, do we know what kind of feedback she's had, or what kind of?
Yeah. She has at least 15 of the 18 spots filled, and I know she was working on filling those last, and she has them filled for before and after school. Yep, she's had very good response. And they are all committing to the entire year. They're all committing to the entire year.
Do I have to read this entire?
I would say motion to approve the attached resolution.
It's all printed, right?
So can I ask one question? I know it was done.
Absolutely.
So what happens if you have more than one person wanting the same area? Are we going to get into any of those issues later down the road where we're going to have concerns of, or are we just going to case by case take this on?
I think we'd take it case by case.
So are you saying, like, if another childcare person says, hey, why don't I get
Right.
this
I just
opportunity?
don't want to get in a
Right.
position where we're now running a bit or we're having to pick and choose, because that is not something that I feel comfortable with. I think everything I heard so far and I've seen is positive and great for the community and the kids, and I understand that. But
Yeah, I think we've run 3 years with nobody wanting anything to do with running a childcare out of there. And we have a very motivated community member that's already running a licensed, established childcare in the program that is looking to expand that into this space. It is not just somebody has an idea. They have done the work and are ready to do this, and that has shown more promise for us than anything else we've seen in the 3-4 years that I've been here. if that,
I think that's great. I just know that some people, when they do the work, then want to benefit from that same thing, right? So I'm just making sure that we're ready for if things come
Yep.
next. And we're not locked in to opening it up to everybody, because I think this is a great idea. And as long as we can continue to vote on it and have a discussion.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions? I'll make a motion to approve the resolution as it is presented in our packet.
I'll second.
Motion made by Joni, seconded by Lisa. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Policy updates.
yeah, as Joni described, the first is policy updates, so this would be the one and only time reading through those. It's policy revisions from volume 33, number 1. Summary of those is included in your packet, so you can kind of see what we looked at. I would agree with Joni wholeheartedly. There were not big substantial changes made in this group of policy revisions. From what I'm looking at, the next one's going to have a couple more we'll spend a little bit more time talking on. But this one, it was pretty cut and dry, legal recommendations and just good recommendations for our district. So if there's discussion, we can discuss any of them. Otherwise, we'd look for a motion to approve the updates and revisions as outlined in Neola Volume 33, number 1.
I'll make a motion to approve updates and revisions as outlined in Neola Volume 33, number 1.
Second.
Motion made by Lisa, seconded by Kelly. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. New policy, first reading.
Yep, first reading, just as a reminder, as Joni said, this is a policy on artificial intelligence, just acknowledging that artificial intelligence is definitely part of our world and coming into the world of education, not necessarily laying out a whole lot of expectations for it in this policy. We did add some things on artificial intelligence in the last updates when it talked about academic integrity. So there is some of those types of things in place, but this is a policy just on that. With it being a first reading, we would have the first approval this month. Next month it would be back, and then after the second approval, it will go into effect.
I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of policy number 7540.08, artificial intelligence, AI.
I'll second.
Motion made by Joni, seconded by Lisa. Any further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Budget adjustments for 2023, 2024.
So every year we set a budget in October, and every year we've stayed within that. We've run better than what the budget has been. And when we run better in an account or run poorly in an account for more than $1,000 difference, which is a very small amount in an $11 million budget, the auditors would like the board to approve those budget adjustments. With one person in our whole financial department, that does not happen multiple times throughout the year, but you guys have been made aware of all changes throughout the year to that budget. You were aware of surplus at the end of the year. You were aware that the numbers came in better for open enrollment than we anticipated. Because of that, we were able to purchase the buses and those types of things. We talked about those things kind of hand in hand. So we've talked about these changes, but we've never really formally approved a budget adjustment. To make the auditors happy, and at least one board member happy that the auditor is not unhappy with us anymore, we have prepared the budget adjustment. We did do one of these budget adjustments early in the year because we had coded something wrong on that initial budget. We were showing food service running at a negative intentionally, and they didn't want us to do that, so we did a similar budget adjustment at that point in time. So we'll have a couple of budget adjustments throughout this year and hopefully have everything going well. The other, I guess one of the other significant discrepancies on there is we had the settlement that we took for the hail damage on the activity center roof, not money that we planned on having, went to Fund 46 so that we can spend it on the roof when that roof is complete. So those are the types of things that made changes, and she's just spelling all of that out in this budget amendment so that we are compliant. So looking for approval of the 23-24 budget adjustments as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the 23-24 budget adjustment as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Kelly, seconded by Joni. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, personnel. We have a resignation, sign language interpreter.
Yeah, not a whole lot to say there. Josie worked with us just for this 1 year, did a great job working with our student, and has moved on to different ventures for the next step of her career. So effective June 15th, resignation of Josie Keelar.
I'll make a motion to approve the resignation.
I'll second.
Motion made by Tina, seconded by Lisa. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Resignation of the middle school, high school ag teacher and FFA advisor.
Yeah, this is definitely one we were disappointed to see, but we wish Maddie Dobbs the very best in her next ventures. She came to us this year on emergency license, a work-based license, worked on that licensure pathway throughout the school year, was doing a great job in our program, and we appreciate her time in the district. Lives in the Melrose Mendora School District. Her children will go to school in the Melrose Mendora School District. They offered her the position in April without interviewing. She turned it down, and they continued to come back to her and made it more than she could turn down to be in the district where her family lives and kids will go to school. So I wish her the very, very best, and we will look to fill those shoes in the ag department here. So looking for a motion to accept the resignation of Maddie Dobbs effective at the end of the 23-24 school year.
So moved.
Motion made by Joni, seconded by Tina. Any questions for their discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Administrative reports. Mr. Chaplin, we'll start with you.
Thanks, Julie. So on the first thing I have on there is just the end of the school year special education enrollment numbers. So last October, because we do a count then, an official count, and then at the end of the year, it's not an official count for state reporting purposes, but just let you know how many kids we have. We have 116 students receiving special education services. We had 20 new kids either moving in or new eligibility. And then 3 permanently placed private students, 2 students graduated, 1 is continuing, and 3 students moved throughout the year, and we had 1 dismissed. And the next part is the 504 plan. Again, those kids aren't receiving special education services, but they are part of getting accommodations and things like that. And we have 17 of those students. So lots of kids needing services. The seclusion and restraint report, I apologize, it's not complete. I'm waiting on one of our alternative placement facilities to get back to me on their total numbers that they had. But in the buildings here, we had 0 cases of seclusion and restraint during the school year last year, and then the one facility had 2 seclusions. And like I said, I'm waiting on the other facility to get back to me on the numbers, and then I can let you know about that. Otherwise, I'll give the numbers to Gene for the notes. And then the forward exam, ACT Aspire, and the ACT, kids should have gotten the results back of that, and we have their results in their files as well. The publication of the total results of that aren't going to be available. They always say sooner than later, but I would say by November would be a good timeline on that, and hopefully earlier, but hopefully by November we'll have those to share with the board.
We did add a couple names to the wall. Am I correct for ACT?
Yes, I believe there was 2.
Yep.
2 in the 30-plus club.
Exciting. Good.
And then the Cardinal Hall distinction. So again, we want to recognize people that have done great things beyond just the athletic parts. That could be a separate one for that. But looking for nominations for people to fill that Hall of Distinction class of this year. We did not have a class last year, so we're hoping to get some nominations to fill that for this year. Again, we're hoping to do that in conjunction, the ceremony in conjunction with homecoming. So if you know anyone or anyone wants to fill out any nomination papers, Gene has those on the website or access if people want to get one of those. So.
Any questions for Mr. Chaplin? Thank you. Dr. Brockup?
Yeah, I just got 2 items there. Status of the openings for and next steps. We obviously just approved those 2 vacancies, or those 2 positions. Sign language interpreter, we do have a viable candidate that I know Mike's working on setting up an interview for next week when he is back, and excited to see how that goes. We do have an internal plan to figure things out, and hope that we can bridge that gap if we need to, but that's something that we will continue to look for. There are multiple districts in the area looking, and those positions have been open for quite some time. So we'll continue to just watch that and see what we can do there. But I feel like we'll be in a good place there. Middle school, high school agriculture teacher, that's obviously an incredibly important role in this community, a position where we've been, hiring at the last minute in the past. Rick has been working really hard, reaching out to some retired folks and other people that just might know somebody in the field. I think it's important to note publicly, Maddie was not a licensed teacher. It did a phenomenal job, had an interest in being part of this. We can work with somebody with an agricultural background that has an interest in being part of the school, and we would absolutely work on that pathway. Again, I think it provides some real life connection for our students there. We'll continue to look at options. Unfortunately, we've been here one other time with the family and consumer position in the time that I've been here, and that position sat open first semester, and then we were working hard on people finishing student teaching, those types of things, and we were able to fill that position for second semester. That would be our effort, our intention. If all things are considered there, we may look at that option as well. So we're weighing all options, and I know that Rick is working really hard on this. I think it's also important to note we've had some pretty serious conversations here. Obviously, the FFA ties directly to this position, but it is something that we are committed to finding someone to be FFA advisor, so that we can continue to offer those FFA experiences for kids We have some very involved high school students that have been involved in those programs for a long time, I really want to make sure that they can continue those opportunities. That's not necessarily 100% class driven, so it can be tied to a club or an organization run by somebody else if need be. So we're having those conversations, and we're going to do all we can to make sure that we provide those opportunities for students throughout the whole school year. So that's kind of the updates on the openings and kind of the next steps on those. Open enrollment, I wanted to provide just a little bit of information on that. So you saw the presentation. You said you'd like to hear more on the open enrollment more frequently. So I thought this would be a good opportunity. We did finish the 23-24 school year, 44 students more in than out. Which is up one from that document that I had originally shared when I looked back at that. When we look at next year, we're looking at probably in that 50 range, so climbing just a little bit. There are applications in place right now. There are 27 applications in, and there are 20 applications out. When I say there are applications, that does not mean that all of those will be approved to come in. That does not mean that even if we approve them, they will come. And the same thing going the other direction. As a matter of fact, we're pretty confident in a couple of them that have applied out, they are not going to get approved. So when we look at kind of a case-by-case situation, we see that. That's where we sit. When we look at, I think it's important to look at the 12th grade and the 4K. Our 12th graders that graduated, we had 6 open enrolled students in that graduating class that just graduated, and there were 6 open enrolled students out that graduated from a different district. So there was really no change in that grade level because of open enrollment. We just traded 6 kids. Really crazy in the 4K world where we're looking, and we've added that third section down there. We have 11 applications in, and we have 11 applications out, and so that stays. So that's where we're sitting. I guess I feel better about the ones that are applications in, because we've had communications with a lot of those. Terry's talked with each of these people, and I think with our childcare option, that out might change a little bit. So I think again, all said and done with the applications, when everything shakes out, I see us going, improving on that number from about 44 to about 50. During the 24-25 school year, a lot will happen between now and September 3rd. It'll happen the first couple of weeks, and as we know, open enrollment is really open year round, so it can change as we go throughout the school year. But I wanted to just give an update on that. We are at a point that we've not necessarily been to. I don't have a resignation on here, but Vicki Brett, who has been helping us with speech and language and doing some of the auxiliary sites for us, just kind of on an hourly basis, kind of keeping Megan from traveling to all those schools, is not going to return next year. That puts our speech and language numbers at an uncomfortable point for sure, where Megan's going to have to do some traveling and those types of things. We are working on options, working with Jeannie and continuing to maybe increase some of her online type presence with some of those students. So we do have some options, but with that said, we are closing open enrollment, and that's what we had voted on in January, but we are right now going to decline 2 open enrollment requests coming in because they have speech and language on those. Where that runs into difficulty is if that's a family of 4 kids, and one of them has speech and language, we're going to accept 3 and decline 1, and then those parents are in a tough place where they have to ask, are we going to split our family, or are we going to just keep our family there? So we've not declined a whole lot like that. The other part of that is once you shut the door and you decline your first ones because of that, even if we have that family of 5 kids with one with a speech and language IEP after this, we're declining that. We can't go back on that because it would be advantageous for us to take one more to get. So that door closes when we do that, and I think it's appropriate that we do so. We are also we're going to continue to watch the 4th and 5th grade class sizes that are right now on paper at 50. I know Terry is well aware of some little bit of movement that's going to happen at those grade levels, but we do have a couple of applications at the 4th and 5th grade that we would be looking at declining as well because we set those caps in January. We do have the ability to go above them, but I don't feel that that's necessarily fair to the students that are here. Again, you close that door for that family that comes in later. Definitely tough decision. So we'll see. We'll continue to watch the numbers in 4th and 5th grade as we get to registration in August and those types of things. Those families may hang out and wait, or they may go somewhere else in the meantime because we're going to leave them hanging until we know what our numbers are. So those are the pinch points in open enrollment, and I think a good problem to have, and we set those caps in January, and we're going to stick to what we have there. If anything changes on that, I'll let you guys know. But that's where I see the sticky points.
So if you approve open enrollment up to that 50 and all of a sudden you have 2 families of 5 move in, then you're over no matter what because now you're residents.
If they're residents, they're coming. Yes. Yeah. Yep. So approving over that is not a good move for us.
No.
If you had 8 and you were looking at adding a 3rd section and it was advantageous to everybody to add, then it's different. But if it's 1 or 2, it's not. So. Okay.
Any questions? All right. So removal of items from the consent agenda. Tonight, our consent agenda includes current openings, which Dr. Brockup just discussed, and with some additional advising, coaching, bus driving, paraprofessional, etc. Project search agreement, which I believe is with Holman. Dr. Brockup has a really good description about what that entails. And then C is our annual declaration and parent notice of our district's student academic standards. We do that annually. Food service agreement with West Salem. And then Bridging the Brighter Smiles. And David also has a report in our packet about how that's been utilized.
Any questions on the consent agenda? If not, I'll move to approve it.
I'll second that.
Motion, was that Tina, did
Joni.
you second?
Joni, Tina,
Yep.
yep.
Motion made by Joni, seconded by Tina to approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, I ask for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Tina, seconded by Lisa. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, everyone.